everyone. Welcome back to Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, with continuing live coverage of motorcycle racing right here on beIN Sports. Coming up right now, MotoAmerica Superbike Championship of Texas. It's Superbike race number 2. Let's take a look at what happened, because we had Superbike race number 1 live right here on beIN Sports yesterday. And on pole is Yoshimura Suzuki's Roger Hayden on the 95, and he got the jump early.
Yeah, and it really looked like he was going to do something and get away, and we saw Cameron go past him. As we're looking back here, Tony Elias and Josh Hayes. Tony left the door open just a little bit, and Josh just barged his way right on through. But at this point here, Kyle Wyman had a big problem as they headed down that back straightaway, and you can see his bike on fire, and it caused a pretty big delay for us, didn't it, Greg? Because we had to clean up some oil.
It certainly did, Jason. There was oil left on the track. There was a big cleanup, and the red flag, of course, came out, and that caused the cleanup. So Roger Hayden getting the short end of that stick, and you could see from the frustration as he hit the handlebar, because Roger looked like he was gone and had that race in hand. So we go to a 5-lap sprint race. Now, the one thing about MotoAmerica, if you're new to the sport, you can't change the tires with a red flag, so you can change everything else. You can refuel the bikes, but the tires they started the race on are the tires that they had. And it looked like Roger Hayden was a little pensive off the start.
Yeah, he got a good start. He led up into turn 1. He was the first lap just was a little bit slow for Raj, and it let Tony by, let Josh by, and next thing you know, Tony Elias went on and put together a great 5 laps and won the race.
So Tony Elias, a fill-in rider for Yoshimura Suzuki, finishes a 1-2 podium finish as the Spaniard here for a couple of races. He wins, and here's what he had to say.
Well, I'm really happy because, like I told you before, we found in the first race something was not working really well, but we were there, no? But they found the problem, they adjust. I have a great team. Suzuki is amazing. And finally we start with determination. I was in front trying to maintain a strong rhythm, and finally we did it. Thank you, Yoshimura Suzuki, for giving me this opportunity, the team, the chief, the mechanics, everybody, the sponsors. And yeah, it's far from home, but it's really nice.
So for Roger Hayden, who was in the lead early on, I think probably the most disappointed rider out on the racetrack, we caught up with him after the race as well. Here's Roger Hayden.
Sometimes the red flags help you, sometimes they hurt you. It's just part of racing, and you know, I'm just really excited for the whole Yoshimura Suzuki team to go 1-2, and heck of a way for me to start the year with some solid points, and we'll move on. And but yeah, pulling away there and the red flag come out definitely hurt, but it's part of it. And you know, we look forward to tomorrow.
Speaking of tomorrow, at least there's another chance for you to redeem yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Tomorrow should be better, and you know, it's a good thing about having 2 races in one weekend. So looking forward to that. I just got to thank my whole crew, Yoshimura Suzuki, and Arai Helmets, Monster Energy, Alpine Starred Leathers, just for taking care of me, and looking forward to another good fight tomorrow.
Well, definitely a class act. Roger Hayden wishing his Yoshimura team congratulations, even though he didn't win it. Now, let's go down to the third member of our broadcast team, Julian Gonzalez, who's down on pit lane.
Greg, thank you very much. Yeah, a lot of excitement out here in the pits for the start of the Superbike. And, well, you know what? I talked to some of the riders earlier talking about, well, obviously they watched that MotoGP race. They saw spills, especially on one particular turn. And a few of them did have kind of like, yeah, you know what? We are going to keep an eye on that. Now, I saw Josh Hayes earlier today, and yourself and Jason know him well, and he was so relaxed. He was just talking to everybody. I'm like, well, maybe I'll put my money on this horse. Then later on, I bump into Tony Elias, and I say, hey, how are you feeling for today? And he says, I feel great. I feel really good, especially because here in Texas, they have a really good breakfast.
Okay.
So then I'm saying, that's my horse. So I think I'm going to go for Tony. He looks way too relaxed. Give him bacon and eggs, and he's good to go.
Well, you always got to start the day with a good breakfast.
That's right.
All right, thank you so much, Julian. We're going to take a break here. Don't go away. We continue with our live coverage of MotoAmerica Superbike race number 2 on the other side. So here we go. When those lights go on, That means that bikes will be in gear and ready to roll. When they go out, clutches get dropped, and we head to the treacherous turn number 1 up the hill. Lights on, and away we go. Race number 2 live on beIN Sports, and it looks like Roger Hayden with a great launch.
Yeah, that's just what I expected. You see Josh Hayes way down on the inside, Cameron Beaubier in 4th, but it's the 2 Yoshimura Suzukis, 1 and 2, Greg.
Tiptoeing through the tulips on those Dunlop tires. Nope, it looks like Roger Hayden is in for some serious business as he has his teammate Tony Elias chasing him down. Where are those factory Yamahas? It looks like Cameron Beaubier in 3rd with Josh Hayes right behind in 4th.
Yeah, this is exactly the dream start Raj wants. He wants to try to get out front, start putting them laps down that we know he's good at. If he can get himself into the 210s really early in this race, he's going to separate himself from the field as we have a good, tight, close look at Jake Gagne running in 5th. It looked like Bobby Fong right behind him.
Bobby Fong, the first of our super stock riders. The difference between a super bike and a super stock bike, simply a lot of acceleration off of a super bike compared to a super stock machine. More modifications allowed. So here we go. It's Roger Hayden on the back straightaway. Let's take a look at the legs of the Suzuki GSX-R 1000 versus that Yamaha R1. Tucked in the draft is the number 1 of Cameron Beaubier behind Tony Elias as they head down to turn number 12.
And you remember yesterday we had a lot of dry sweep down. That's all gone. Cameron is up underneath Elias. He's going to have a go.
Side by side they go. Elias has to check up just a little bit, and Beaubier will take the spot.
Cameron wants some redemption from yesterday. This is the turn where he had some of his problems yesterday, and he's got himself right in the position he wants to be. He knows what Roger's game plan is to try to get away as early and as quick as we can. Look how much tighter Cameron goes into there than Raj, and he doesn't really lose a lot of ground there doing that. So we'll see as they go through this big, long right. This big, long right, Greg, was the spot where Josh had told us this morning where he seems to be struggling a little bit, just getting his bike to turn. So he says he's okay on the entry. The middle part is where he's struggling.
Number 95, Roger Hayden out of Owensboro, Kentucky, leads the way, but the number 1 plate of Cameron Beaubier is stalking him right now as Beaubier is keeping Roger Hayden in sight. This is close Superbike racing we thought we would see as the dash to the flag, to the stripe right now to complete lap number 1, and it is Roger Hayden leading the way by a slim margin as Tony Elias now looks like he's going to try to fight. No, he thinks better of it into turn number 1.
We've seen that place has caused a lot of riders havoc today, and you know, there's so many different variables that you can have when you go up to the top there because of how wide it is and how big it gets. And there's also a bump as we head into turn 2 there that if you hit it full lean, we've seen a couple guys lose the front in that very, very fast turn 3 there, rather, that they just went through. But it looks like we've got a pretty big group of, say, 5 or 6, 7 riders that have broken away from the rest of the field. We look back there, we see Bobby Fong, and it looked like I saw Day also back there. Josh Day is also looked like he was just behind him. So we've got a mix of super stock and super bikes up here at the front. But Beaubier is looking to make a move on Raj to head down into turn 11, one of the many braking spots that are heavy braking spots. We're going to see he ducks in behind him. Now we're going to see if that Yamaha can draft that Yoshimura Suzuki, just like he did. He got a big slide out of there, out of turn 11 as he applied the gas.
Hey, Beaubier had the same idea that you were thinking of, Jason. He wanted to get a handful so he could get in the draft, but does he lose enough with Tony Elias? Will Tony Elias have enough steam to get by him? It looks like Beaubier is pretty deep on the brakes, and Tony Elias just taking a tighter line, trying to get that GSX-R 1000 to turn. Wow. That was a big moment for the number 1 of Cameron Beaubier, who wants to make sure that he scores the most amount of points and doesn't squirt himself off the back of that motorcycle.
Yeah, and when you come onto that straightaway, your whole intention is, let's use up as much exit as we can, let's get the bike stood up as quickly as we can, let's use as much throttle. If you don't get those that combination together exactly perfect, you have what happened to Cam there. Just got on a little bit too much with a little bit too much lean angle, and it just spit him up out of the seat, so he's going to have another go after he gets through these S's again here in a few minutes.
What's impressive to me is back there, the back part of your screen, you have Bobby Fong on the 50 and the 0-0 of Josh Day, both right now latching onto the back end.
Yeah, and it looks like Raj really has the measure of Cameron in that last half of the racetrack, from that stadium section through the finish. So the last quarter of the track, and he's going to get a big dive bomb move right now from Tony Elias as they go up into turn 1.
Wow, so Cameron Beaubier is not able to run his own race, as now the Spaniard, the race winner from yesterday, makes his move on Beaubier and sets his sights for his teammate Roger Hayden. as they just completed a complete lap, a 2:10.1 for Roger Hayden, 2:10.2. So all these times really close. We did see at the first part of the race yesterday that Roger Hayden was able to dip into the 2:09 bracket. So there might be some time left in Roger Hayden's racecraft.
And you got 2 Superstock bikes doing 2:10s also.
That's incredible, actually.
It just goes to show you how good these motorcycles are out there. So it looks like these 3 now have found a way to split and break away from Josh. And Cameron's going to have to start getting really aggressive to try to get by Elias. I wouldn't be surprised to see him try to duck down the inside. He's trying now. Let's see if he can be a little bit patient as Raj runs wide down into turn 11.
Now this is where it gets a little tricky for a rider like Tony Elias. He has his sights set on the 95, Roger Hayden, the race leader. But he's also got to be thinking behind him, what is Cameron Beaubier going to do? Tony hasn't had much racing experience with Cameron Beaubier because of Beaubier's thing. And oh, look at Tony Elias. What brake lever? He lays off the brakes and goes by Roger Hayden to take over the lead. But Roger, dirt track style, squares it up and tries to squirt out of the corner. No, it is not going to happen as Tony Elias takes the lead.
Watch the difference in lines right down here. Tony's going to get in there a little bit tighter than Raj. Raj runs it out a little bit wider. Cameron's still right with these 3, and I'm sure Raj is steaming under his helmet. Even though it's his teammate, even though it's Yoshimura Suzuki, there's probably nobody Raj wants to be worse today than Tony. So, especially after the things that happened yesterday. So, this could get really good between these 2 guys. Now, I wouldn't be surprised to see Cameron just sit there and maybe watch this. But you can see these 2 Yoshimura Suzukis, Greg, are a lot better in the last quarter of the lap. That can play dividends as the race wears on, as the tire wear wears on, and towards the end of the race. Cameron's going to have to get something done earlier in the lap rather than later.
So our first look at Tony Elias, a 2:09.456. So he just dropped another over half a second, 0.6 of a second after he took over the lead. Boy, Tony Elias could be dangerous right now. He's a world champion in Moto2. He's a world-class rider, as here we have another look at the pass.
He simply just got in Raj's draft, put himself in a position at the end of the back straightaway to run it in there, and we've seen how good he is on the brakes. Now, the other thing that we must note is yesterday, before the red flag, he had a specific problem with his bike, and they made that adjustment during the red flag, and you can see how good his bike is going into the corners. It's not backing in as much. It's not coming around on him as much. He's got a lot of confidence in getting that bike slowed down in those heavy braking areas.
Last year, we saw domination by the Monster Energy Graves Yamaha team. This year, with the arrival of Tony Elias, I asked Roger Hayden point blank, is Tony Elias' presence a bit of a motivator for you? And he said, yeah, absolutely it is. And now we're starting to see the potential of the GSX-R 1000. It's Cameron Beaubier now. It looks like, I don't know if he just made a mistake. It might have been a shifting problem on his motorcycle. That was something crazy. At least he didn't crash. What do you think?
And that was something that he had a problem with yesterday. He had a problem with the bike going into neutral and then dropping into gear. So it doesn't look like that problem's been cured, because you can see now he's back up to speed again. And that's a big bummer for Cameron, because he was sitting there watching what was going on. I'm having a look back there now, and you can see he just looks awkward and uncomfortable just trying to get that bike into gear. He came into this other section. We're going to look here. You can see he just can't get the bike into gear. Just can't get it into gear. And it was good of him to be able to put his leg out, so the riders behind that he's having an issue. But it just looks like there's something happening there with him under heavy braking, going back down through the gears. That Yamaha R1 just doesn't seem like it's doing it for him right now.
Final podium position inherited to Josh Hayes right now, and Hayes looks like he's struggling a bit, doing 2:10.4s. So he's kind of caught in no man's land, where he has Jake Gagne, who's being hounded up, and it looks like we have a faller. So that is Ryan Jones on the 83. So it looks like Ryan Jones, he's got a little bit of a limp there. We'll see if we can get a look at the 888. Oh, the 83. He looks like he tried to grab the bike there for a second.
He definitely sacrificed himself, because he could have taken Max Flinders out with him, and he did a good job of missing him. He was just in there too deep. And, you know, there's not a lot of racetracks in the country where we're braking from 185 mile an hour. So it's new to a lot of these guys that maybe do some club racing and are trying to make that next step. It's hard, because all of a sudden you come to a place like this, those speeds are great. So these 2 guys are in a league of their own right now, and they're pulling away from Josh. They've now got almost a 3-second lead on Josh Hayes on that R1.
Wow, so Tony Elias, yesterday's race winner over Roger Hayden. Roger Hayden, the only one right now to keep the Spaniard, Tony Elias, honest. Now, Jason, we've talked about this. You know, Tony Elias, a bit of a journeyman from time to time, switching MotoGP to Moto2, back to MotoGP, and so on. But the tires on these motorcycles, Dunlop control tires, very similar, as Elias gets totally sideways and out of control and able to still get that motorcycle slowed down, but the gap was reduced ever so slightly. Elias has a lot of time on these Dunlop tires. He knows the feel of them for Moto2.
Absolutely. He's a Moto2 world champion, as you say, Greg. So I think that it wasn't a big step for him to come here. I think just getting used to the 1000 Suzuki, getting used to a new team, a new country, he's not going to have to get used to a lot of that because he's done it for so long, jumping from team to team. So coming to America, he seems to really like it over here. As we see a great super stock battle back there between Josh Day and Bobby Fong with Jake Gagne just in front of him. It looks like Gagne got in there a little bit wide. But Josh Day, we talked about him before. I said I think he'll run up front more often this year, and he's leading the Superstock class right now.
Watch the acceleration of the 32. That's the bike in front. That's a Superbike versus the 00 on a Superstock bike. You can see, as we look at Bobby Fong and that Kawasaki, also Superstock, when you get a look at those front pictures, watch the 32 come leaping off the corner and out-accelerate the Superstock bike. That is due in big part to more engine modifications allowed for a Superbike versus a Superstock machine. Superstocks, of course, just a lower budgeted version, but the same motorcycle. Oh, it's Josh Day hard on the gas, almost comes out of the saddle and crashes that motorcycle. He's able to gather it back up as he shakes his head, and that hands it over to Bobby Fong, at least temporarily.
And it almost looked like Josh was getting a little frustrated. It looked like he was stuck a little bit behind Gagne there, and he was just trying to get a good drive out of that last corner. As we go back to the front here, these guys are still only separated by half a second. Running still in the 209s, both riders now in the 209s, which is very, very fast pace. It's what they qualified at. So both these guys very determined right now.
209.456 to a 209.929. That is the best go around. But last time, 209.955 for Elias, 209.991 for Roger Hayden. So Roger's definitely throwing everything he has at Tony Elias, and Elias is able to manage that small gap right now, as it's Tony Elias, Hayden, Hayes, Gagne, Fong, and Day.
And he's wide. I'm sure when we go back to this shot, you're going to see that Roger Lee Hayden is either in front or drafting him, and it looks like he is. I could tell Tony got completely out of shape. Now, let's see if Raj moves over to the left here and not allow his teammate to go back down the inside of him.
So lead change, and Roger Hayden takes over, but Tony Elias is trying to find that brake lever again. He is in that corner so deep, and Hayden able to square it right back up, as Elias just doesn't want to sit back in second. He wants to go out and set the pace.
And we heard Josh Hayes say yesterday that Tony Elias is pretty entertaining to follow.
Yes.
And he's showing that again today, but he's got the confidence that he can get his bike into those corners now. There's going to come a point where you're going to have to block that. If he's going to go by you, make him go down the outside of you. Don't make him go down the inside of you and slow you down. That's the point where I'm hoping that at some point where if this race keeps playing out like it does, Roger's got to close that door and make Tony go down the outside of him.
Nearly 80 degrees the ambient temperature, 79 right now, and you've got to think too, with 15 laps on a 3.4 mile circuit, there's got to be some tire management in this as well. If Elias keeps beating that Dunlop up like that, there might not be anything left at the end of the race for him.
Well, they're doing 209s, and that's as fast as they've gone on race tires all weekend long. So I don't think there's too much tire conservation going on right now. So it's going to be a matter of who is going to be able to take that and run with it the best when those tires start to really go down. So we're going to see what the pace does now that Raj is taking the lead. That was still in the 209s, or no, 210 flat on that last lap. So that's even with Tony going back and forth. So if Raj can dip it back down in the 209s and show us that he can do those lap times on his own also, then we're going to have a real fight under our hands. But he must protect the inside of these very slow, tight left-hand corners, because we know Tony's going to have a go at him.
Live MotoAmerica racing here at Superbike race number 2 on beIN Sports. 9 laps to go. Roger Hayden, the number 95 in the Yoshimura Suzuki, leads his teammate, number 24, Tony Elias, former Moto2 champion, and then Josh Hayes in 3rd place, then Bobby Fong, Jake Gagne, and Josh Day. Cameron Bobier in 7th place after recovering from that miscue on the racetrack. He's still going around. Josh Herron, Claudio Corti, and Danny Eslick rounding out your top 10.
Raj was able to get out of turn 11 really solid. So, you know, and again, Tony's in his draft right now. I would be surprised to see him do something at the end of the straightaway this lap, because it just doesn't look like he was close enough, but he's going to have a go anyways.
Oh, he is not scared. Up the inside goes Tony Elias, takes the position one more time. He's going to go a little bit wide, but he has that position on the inside, and so Tony Elias, our race leader, yet again.
Yeah, he's so small. The bike seems to accelerate so well. Raj is not big. Raj is skinny right now. But Tony Ellis is really small, and it just didn't look like he was close enough as they were headed down that back straightaway. But that little bit extra draft really helped pull him up alongside. So now Raj has got to go back to work. He's got to find out where he's going to pass. It's going to be really hard for Raj to go by Tony in braking zones, in braking areas. It's going to be more of a dive bomb move. We still got 9 laps to go, though, so we're going to see how this tire situation plays out and see if these guys can continue to run this pace.
Roger Hayden on the 95 in second spot. A little tighter line on the exit of that corner. Now as Tony Elias comes onto the front straightaway, look at the acceleration that Elias got out of that corner as he heads to the stripe. We'll keep an eye on that lap time because Tony Elias really launched out of that corner.
Yeah, Josh was telling us that Tony has this ability to get into a corner, trail brake all the way almost to the apex. The second he gets there, he doesn't just pick the throttle up. He picks it up hard and he's able to get the bike in there, get it turned. And as a rider, when you have that front end confidence, it's the greatest thing that you can have. Bobby Fong and Josh Day have seemed to get by Jake Gagne. I'm not sure where Jake Gagne is in that screen, but also back there, look, Cameron Beaubier has come back through the field. He's up to 6th, he's trying to just limit the damages right now. And I'm sure he's being very careful when he goes into these corners, but I'd be really interested to see what happened to Jake Gagne. Gagne ran a 2:14 that last lap, so obviously a mistake was made somewhere.
Cameron Beaubier dipping back down into the mid-210 range, 210.6, with Josh Day and Bobby Fong in the 211s. So here's a look at the 32 is what you're looking at as the #1 goes by his fellow California riders. So Cameron Beaubier, the champ, gets by the number 32 and takes over that position. So Beaubier right now is on a charge, and with the amount of laps we have left, there is a possibility that he could catch Josh Day and Bobby Fong and go for it. But all eyes at the front, the 24, Tony Elias, yesterday's race winner. A lot of people talking, hey, this is great to have Tony Elias in this series. He's a world championship caliber rider, and we here in the U.S. want to prove that we can race with him, and they definitely showed that yesterday. But Elias right now is showing to be the class of the field in this first round of the championship. Second race, live pictures on beIN Sports. So Roger Hayden has really got to put his head down right now and figure out where he can maximize his strengths and minimize his weaknesses.
I think Raj is, this Tony right now, he's putting on a really hard pace right now, and it looks like Raj is having to try really hard to keep up with him. And when we go back to that back straightaway here in a little while, Tony gets out of shape. You go over those red tiger teeth onto that red paint, there's a lip there, and it will catch the tire. We saw it here the other day. Right there, you can see there's a little lip between that red paint and the tiger teeth. But one of the things I'll get the viewers at home to have a good look at is how early Tony's committing to these turns, especially off the end of the back straightaway. He gets his bike in there, gets it turned, and he gets it out of there. That's going to be very hard for Raj to pull up alongside of him. When we get over here to turn 11 in a minute, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. He just turns it in a little bit earlier, and he's on not the edge of the tire, but he's on a little bit bigger part of the tire, but he's trail braking all the way to the apex. And you'll see it again at the end of the back straightaway. That's why he's got so much confidence. And this looks like Josh Day.
Oh, the 00. The Yamalube Westby Racing R1, Josh Day in the Superstock class. He was in a great position for another podium finish. Wow, what happened there,
That's a
Jason?
big high side. That is a big high side.
You can see the black marks coming out of the corner.
Yes, that's a big high side out of turn 18. What a horrible place to do it. So good to see him walking away now. Raj has closed this gap up. See how much earlier Tony's committing to that corner than Raj? But he's able to get out of the turn, and Raj isn't able to really do anything with him. And you're going to see the exact same thing here. When they get to the end of this back straightaway, you'll see him get that bike turned in there a little bit sooner, but it's not hurting him at all. So his bike is just setup-wise, seems like it's just a little bit better than Raj's right now, especially on corner entry.
We've seen Roger Hayden hang around in this battle as it's Elias, Hayden, Hayes, Fong, Beaubier, and Gagne right now. We've seen him hang around in this battle, and the only time we've really been able to see Roger do something is when Tony made a mistake. And obviously he's proven he's not beyond making mistakes with 7 laps to go. So Roger's got to stay steady and consistent, but if he has any chance of winning this race, he's got to figure something out.
Tony starts seeing his board go +1, +2. He's going to know that he's only 2 or 3 laps away from really breaking Raj. And by that I mean, once you start seeing that board go up, now Raj is the king of being able to latch on the back, and he is still trying to do that. I'm not giving this race to Tony at all, but I'm saying as a rider up front, when you're pushing hard and you see your lap times where they are, and you start seeing a plus, you just know if I can just push 2 more laps, it means I've only got 4 to go at that point. So right now they're coming across with 6 to go. If he could push two more really hard laps, the gap right now is 2:10.617, and he's gaining all of his time in these really tight turns.
Tony Elias just came by the stripe at a 2:09.872. That's right around 0.4 of a second off the best time that he's done so far. Hayden's answer, a 2:10.1. So that gap extending ever so slightly. And you can see there's a good look at Bobby Fong in 4th place. So it's Tony Elias, Roger Hayden, Josh Hayes, and Hayes back 8.2 seconds from that battle. Bobby Fong is the first of our super stock riders. He won the super stock class. You can tell from that red backing number plate and those white number 50s.
Yeah, and I've really rated this kid for a number of years, and I've really just got to know him this weekend, but I've really rated Bobby for a number of seasons now, and the kid's incredibly talented. He can ride anything. As we see Tony just eking out that gap just a little bit more right now on Raj, and it seems like it's obviously he's pushing. He's trying really, really hard, but you can see how early he's getting to the gas there. You see his hand there, where he just got that thing and he's turning it on. He's using a little bit more exit than Raj out of that corner even also.
And a look over the shoulder just to see where Roger was, and he saw quite a gap back to his teammate, the number 95 of Roger Hayden. So a good look at Tony Elias managing the corners here, getting that GSXR 1000 slowed down. Elias, Roger Hayden, Hayes, Fong, Beaubier now up to 5th. Claudio Corti with a much better ride because, well, he's on the racetrack. He's in 6th. Josh Herron in 7th. Danny Eslick in 8th. Taylor Knapp in 9th. And David Anthony in 10th spot. Look at this battle.
Oh, between Corti and Herron, and Gagne's back there, and Danny Eslick.
Oh, look at that. That's the fight you want to see, Claudio Corti.
Yeah, that's good for him. He had an accident yesterday, and again, he was racing MotoGP last year, and it looked like Danny Eslick put his arm up to Jake Gagne. I think Gagne's got a problem, and he let Danny go by. I think Gagne's just, obviously, he's got an issue because we saw him as one of our front runners earlier. Last lap, again, was a little bit slower, but boy, we get Danny Eslick in this mix with Josh Herron. There's been some fireworks between those two in the past.
They have history, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes,
they have history.
And you got Claudio Corti. They both want to beat him. Yep. And this could be a battle to watch all the way to the end.
Josh Herron, there he goes, up around the outside and up the inside. So the number 2 on that Mean Motorsports machine, on that Yamaha R1 around the Aprilia. But Claudio Corti fighting back right now as he stuffs it up the inside. And all the while, you have the 69 of Eslick right behind him. And you can tell from those number plates that this is a super stock battle. The battle for 6th, 7th, and 8th place, as now Herron Motors on by the Aprilia.
Yep, and I've been doing a little bit of homework down there in the pits, and everyone's been telling me that Mean Motorsports Yamaha that Josh Herron's riding is extremely fast. So these two guys behind him are going to have to work at it.
And the Wheels in Motion Mean Motorsports rider, Josh Herron, is no stranger to winning. He's a former Superbike champion just a couple of years ago before he departed for Moto2, and now he's back racing in the MotoAmerica Championship here in the United States, and he has his hands full with Claudio Corti. Let's take a look at the replay.
He just goes right around the outside of Corti, and it looks like Corti had some issues with his bike. Even looked like he was trying to get an upshift in the middle of that corner, but look at this. Like I said, Raj, once he gets his teeth in the end, hangs on, he does everything he can to hang on, and that gap hasn't gotten any bigger.
0.539, the margin right now, as Tony Elias did a 10.4. That's a 210.4 to Hayden's 210.3. So Hayden just taking little bits and pieces out of it. I mean, you can look at timing and scoring all you want, but we can see it with our own eyes that Roger Hayden is trying to fight back right now with 5 to go. And this is the part where the tires start to get some wear in them as the battle for 6 rages on. The number 2 is Josh Herron, the number 71, Claudio Corti, and right behind them, the number 69, one of the most spectacular riders you're ever going to see on a motorcycle, Danny Eslick. He loves to have the thing sideways and loves to spin it up. And if anything goes wrong with these 2 riders in front of him, he's going to collect it all.
And I'm interested to see when they go back to the 16, 17, and 18 complex over there if Claudio has that same issue he had before. This gap has closed. Raj is gnawing away at it here. And Elias is still going to see +0 on his board.
So Tony Elias, the 24, continuing to lead the way. And there we go, up the hill they go to turn number 1. And, you know, it's so funny looking at Elias because oftentimes you think from the framing of the picture that he might have a bit of a problem, but he just seems to be able to get it right back to that apex.
Yeah, he gets the thing, his bike's turning incredibly well. And both riders now doing 210.4. So the lap times have decreased like we thought they would do. Both guys' tires might be going off just a little bit, but through certain segments, it looks like Raj can really close in, and there's just places where Tony's a little bit better and Raj is a little bit better. So through all this little section. Remember yesterday, Tony rode such a great last lap through all these beginning S's, and he does seem to pull away through here.
So this is the battle for first between Tony Elias, Roger Hayden. In third spot, kind of a no man's land, is Josh Hayes. Then Bobby Fong is starting to come under fire from Cameron Beaubier. So Cameron Beaubier has worked his way up to 5th place. Then it's Josh Herron in 6th, Claudio Corti 7th, Danny Eslick in 8th, Jake Gagne in 9th, Taylor Knapp rounding out your top 10, David Anthony, Hayden Gillum, Steve Rapp in 13th. And then on back, rounding out top 15 is Chris Ulrich. So this battle right here continues to rage on. Although Tony Elias would like to have it his way and like to be able to check out, Roger Hayden is a lot of tenacity in this rider. He definitely likes to hang on. And here is a look at Cameron Beaubier now, who goes around Bobby Fong. So Beaubier, after running off the track and having a seemingly some type of problem with the motorcycle, has worked his way back up to 4th place with some incredibly quick lap times.
See, he's having to do a downshift into this tight right-hander here. I saw him do it that lap here, and yesterday, I think when he went for that shift, it didn't quite go into gear. And then he started to stand the bike upright, and it jumped into gear on him. But he's done a fantastic job to get this bike and himself back up into a decent points-paying position to get his campaign for 2016 started. But what can you say about Bobby Fong? He's absolutely checked out from that 1,000 Superstock battle behind him on a brand-new bike. So congrats to him.
Having to relearn how to ride a motorcycle. He's been a 600 rider for so long. Getting on the 1,000, his team told me that they really had to work on his riding style and how he delivers the power. There's a big distinction between a super stock bike and a 1,000cc super stock bike and a super sport 600 machine on the way you ride it. So Josh Hayes, he's in 3rd spot right now. He's 12 seconds behind Roger Hayden and only 4 seconds ahead of Cameron Beaubier. And Beaubier just went 0.7 of a second quicker than Hayes. If Hayes isn't careful, Beaubier's going to reel him in. But here are this great battle. Look at Claudio Corti as he goes from the outside to the inside, as Josh Herron is having none of that. And look at Danny Eslick is so close. This is the type of racing we love to see, what super stock is all about, as Herron continues to try those 600 lines with a tremendous amount of corner speed.
So good, and Danny's just sitting there looking for that opportunity to try to get by. So we look at these guys as they go into this is the last corner.
Yeah.
Oh, no, yeah, this is turn 1. Sorry, exactly right. Different. Claudio goes diving back underneath him. It looks like Josh wants to get on the gas, but he can't. Claudio's parked right there.
Got to check up just a little bit.
These guys are dicing.
Yeah, because Claudio had a bit of a gap, but Herron able to reel him back in. Boy, you can see the front ends of those motorcycles just protesting as they go over the crest of that hill. Okay, here we are. So Herron now is going to go up to the inside. Claudio Corti sees him. He checks up, so Herron takes it for a second. He tries to square it up. No can do. Now the long drag race as Claudio Corti on that 71. That is an Aprilia. And Josh Herron with that yellow mean motorsports motorcycle is hammering him up, and he goes by on that straightaway. So the battle for 6th is crazy. Is Corti going to try him on the brakes? Oh, there he is on the inside. This is gnarly racing. And Herron goes after him again. Jason, take it over. I'm out of breath.
Danny just doesn't seem to have quite the horsepower to do anything with either one of them. It looks like he's trying to, but it's going to take something big for Danny to try to go by both of them. And you can see there you go. That's what Danny's got to do to get in the mix. And he's going to stuff both of them. He's going to try to get by both, and he does.
Wow. How about the 69? He saw his opportunity with 2 laps to go. Josh Herron and Claudio Corti fighting the entire time. And what does the 69 motorcycle do? He tries to take advantage, but here's Herron again. So now these 2 riders, they have a lot of history, folks. I'm telling you, it is tense times right now down in the paddock as the 69 of Danny Eslick takes over from the number 2 and the 71.
Now, I'm suspecting that he's going to go back by Danny down this front straightaway, and don't be surprised to see Danny do the crossover move that Claudio Corti just did. You can see Josh over on the left-hand side of the track going past. Danny's going to fall in right behind him. I thought Danny might try to do the same thing that Corti did. Danny's in deep, gets it turned. Now, what's Corti going to do? He's back there. He doesn't know these 2 guys. He's never raced against them, so he's trying to analyze all that as he goes also. And it also looks to me like Herron was sliding the bike really hard coming out of 16, 17, 18 just now. And it looks like Tony Elias did finally break Roger Lee Hayden as he heads out onto the back straightaway for his final time.
So Tony Elias has broken the will of Roger Hayden, a 2:10.5 to Hayden's 2:11.1. So there is the number 1 of Cameron Beaubier now. It looks like he's fallen back into the clutches of Bobby Fong. So Cameron Beaubier was making a pretty hefty charge up towards the front, towards his teammate Josh Hayes, but the last go around a 2:12 flat to Bobby Fong, matching that time. So there's Hayes right there. He just went out of screen. The number 1 is on that blue motorcycle. That's Monster Energy Graves Yamaha Cameron Beaubier. And there is Bobby Fong on that Quicksilver Lubricants latest motorsports Kawasaki. And back to the battle for 6th place.
Oh, Corti's going to try to go down the inside
Oh
of both.
my goodness. Look at Claudio Corti. Under horsepowered, but man, that Aprilia seems to turn really well. As the 69 TOBC Racing, Danny Eslick continues to lead this battle for 6th place. Claudio Corti hanging way off that motorcycle to get it to turn. That is such a great battle. As now Tony Elias flashes across the line to take the white flag, the final lap of this race. Tony Elias right now poised to do the double, and with his teammate Roger Hayden right behind. We talked to team manager
Don Sakakura.
Don Sakakura, had to catch my breath there for a second, who told us that if Tony Elias keeps winning these races, he's going to have to find some budget when Jake Lewis comes back. Middle of this year, you may see 3 Yoshimura Superbikes. There's Bobby Fong. He's in 5th spot right now, but he's leading the Super Stock race. He's leading it over Danny Eslick, Josh Herron, and Claudio Corti right now. But leading the Superbike portion with that white backing number plate with the black number 24, this man, who came in as a fill-in rider to Circuit of the Americas during the MotoGP weekend. His family for so long, he rides in the MotoAmerica Superbike Championship here in Texas, and he is leading this race as he starts to come up on some lap traffic.
Yeah, and he ran it off in here. He's going to get a turn. He's going to have a quick look over his shoulder like he just did, and he sees, his pit board at the last lap told him he had a 2.5 second lead, and he's continued to just stretch it out. He really ran an unbelievable race today, and I feel bad for Raj, but hey, Tony Elias is a world champion, and he's just done such a great job. Tony's going to get his way through these last set of back markers here, probably in a little stadium
hope so,
section.
anyway.
Yep.
We hope so. Anything can happen. So sometimes when you come up on back markers, they're racing each other. These guys look like they're spread out ever so slightly, as Tony Elias is going to have to navigate lap traffic. And now, as he goes around the 263 rider, that's Jeff Roble.
Elias probably isn't used to seeing traffic. A lot of times in the Grand Prix stuff, these guys don't have to deal with back markers. So I'm sure in his past he's had to deal with that when he was coming up. But we got 2 turns to go.
So Tony Elias, the 24 on the Yoshimura Suzuki, the Spaniard coming here to the United States to race in the MotoAmerica Series. Wow, what a performance he's put on in front of the MotoGP paddock that's packing up their stuff to head back to Spain. He hammers the throttle on that Yoshimura Suzuki, a big stand-up wheelie, and the double goes to Tony Elias on the Yoshimura Suzuki, with his teammate Roger Hayden completing a 1-2 sweep as Josh Hayes on the number 4 Monster Energy Graves Yamaha takes that motorcycle home to score the amount of points that he can, the most amount, as we head next week to Road Atlanta. And how about 5th overall for Bobby Fong and his double win? And here's that battle for 6th place. It's 71 Corti. There is, he goes up the inside. Josh Herron on the number 2 is leading the 69. Does that Aprilia have what it takes to the line? Oh, wow. That was so close, as Claudio Corti on our timing and scoring, it looks like he took 6th place over Josh Herron with Danny Eslick.
But it just looked like he had about a half a wheel length on him, didn't it? And it looked like Josh tried to square it up the best he could, but Claudio got in there. You can even see his bike. You could see his bike actually chattering a little bit.
Yeah.
But both those guys were wheeling on the exit, and it was literally half a wheel.
Somebody get me a bottle of oxygen. That was some great racing there for 6th spot between Claudio Corti, Josh Herron, and Danny Eslick. But this is the overall race winner, Tony Elias. You've heard his name for years in racing, in MotoGP racing, Moto2 racing, a very talented racer in his own right. Comes here, he tests a couple times with the Yoshimura Suzuki, he gets that motorcycle dialed in with a red flag, really proving yesterday the turn of events for Tony Elias, as Roger Hayden continues to impress with his pace. And wow, Suzuki 1-2 yet again.
Yeah, and that's pretty big news for us in this series right now, because Yamaha has been so dominant. Yamaha won every single race last year in all categories. They never lost. So to come out of the box here and have 2 Yoshimura Suzukis kind of dominant here this weekend. It kind of reminds you of the days of Spies and Mladen and things like that. But this guy here, Josh Hayes, I don't think he's going to be too unhappy. He got 2 podiums. He knew he wasn't at his best this weekend. He knew he struggled here a little bit, but he got 2 podiums out of it, and he got a big chunk of points, and he's going to move on. He loves Road Atlanta.
Oh, loves Road Atlanta.
So, you know, we're going to see Josh win his share of races this year.
And, of course, we'll be able to see what Josh Hayes does right here on beIN Sports, as it's now the home of MotoAmerica. MotoAmerica is being televised right here on beIN Sports Network, and next week we will be at Road Atlanta to bring you all the race action. It's going to be a lot of fun. How is a guy like Tony Elias going to adapt to the natural road course of Road Atlanta? We're looking forward to see how that goes. Here is a look at the final results. Tony Elias winning 4 seconds ahead of Roger Hayden, then Josh Hayes on the Yamaha coming in third with Cameron Beaubier. Quite the recovery for Cam to score 13 points. Bobby Fong, the first of our super stock. You see that right there on the right-hand side. Claudio Corti, after a crash yesterday, doing great work, finishing second. He'll get to stand on the podium next to Josh Herrin. I'm sure that they're going to have a great conversation about that racing. Then Danny Eslick, who is 8th, just off the super stock podium. Jake Gagne, will have to find out what happened with Jake and his race program as he fails 43 seconds back in 9th place. Taylor Knapp, David Anthony, Hayden Gillum, Steve Rapp scoring some points there in 13th. Sheridan Moraes, or
Moraes,
Moraes, like Mariah Carey.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. We talked to Sheridan quite a bit, and Chris Ulrich there. And on back through the field as Josh Day had that big high side, and he was out with Ryan Jones and, of course, Kyle Wyman not making it to the end. But all hats off to this rider, Yoshimura Suzuki pilot Tony Elias. He certainly didn't have an easy go at it. Roger Hayden put up quite a fight. It may have been 4 seconds at the end, but Tony Elias really had to put together an amazing race in order to get this win. Here's your points. Perfect for Tony Elias, 25 for both races, leading the MotoAmerica Championship with Roger Hayden in second, Josh Hayes in third.
Yeah, and looking at this, I'm looking back at Jake Gagne there. Jake obviously had some issues there towards the end of the race, and it'd be great to see, but that's an incredible top 4 that we have right there.
All right, so Tony Elias leading the championship. We're going to take a break here on beIN Sports. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more from Circuit of the Americas from Austin, Texas. Superstock 1000 Championship point standings as Bobby Fong is perfect so far this season. Josh Herrin with 36 and Taylor Knapp in third right now. Look, it's our first view of MotoAmerica right here on beIN Sports channel, and another look at the Superbike Championship standings. I mean, I can tell you that a month ago, there was no way, if you asked me, who do you think is going to be at the top of this leaderboard, if it was other than Roger Hayden, Josh Hayes, or Cameron Beaubier, I certainly wouldn't have believed it, let alone Tony Elias.
Yeah, it's great. And I mean, it's just going to put, our series is growing here again, and we're going to get Spanish audiences cluing in now to see Tony Elias over here in our championship. We're going to see Italian audiences with Claudio Corti. So it's great for the series. It's great for the championship. And it's going to push our guys. It's going to make our guys even better. Look, I don't even question our guys. I know how good they are. This was just a very special weekend for Tony Elias, and it was almost like a home race for him in front of his whole paddock that he's grew up with. And he's been here before. So he's going to have to go to some tracks. When you're at the level that Tony Elias is, going to new tracks means nothing. They will pick up new tracks immediately. It's you hear some guys say, oh, it's a home race or it's home this. There's no home tracks when you're at the level that these guys are at. They go to new places, they go to new tracks, they pick them up fast, and they move right forward.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what, Jason? They mentioned that we're going to Road Atlanta next week. Not only are we going to Road Atlanta next week for MotoAmerica right here on beIN Sports, but we also have World Superbike from Assen and World Rallycross from Portugal. A lot of motorsports programming going on right here. So if you're locked into beIN Sports Network, you are doing the right thing because we have motorcycle racing, World Rallycross, all kinds of great stuff. And I'll tell you what, spectacular race action, 6 hours of coverage today, starting with Super Sport for MotoAmerica, then into Moto3, Moto2, MotoGP, and of course, this particular race. So, what an amazing turn of events here as Tony Elias on the couch 3 weeks ago comes here and does the double. and he really starts to set the bar for MotoAmerica riders and what they're going to have to chase after. And I've known Josh Hayes long enough to know that he's a very good interview. He's a very professional person, but he is not happy right now.
Nope, and I don't think Raj is either. And there's two guys that are really happy right now. Don Sekakura up there up on the podium, and Tony Elias, and you see Amar Bazaz handing out the trophies. But both in Josh and Raj, this is going to give them a little bit of motivation, because that's a big, big trophy that isn't in one of their hands. But you know what? Hats off to Tony Elias. He rode flawless today, and you know he really did have a problem before that race started, before it got red flagged yesterday, and he was fighting it, and he was doing what he did. Once the Yoshimura crew fixed that little issue, it's been clear sailing for him. And today he rode really faultless. He really rode well. It's pretty easy to get into corners too deep here. And when you get into corners too deep at this place, you can run wide. And we saw him make a couple of those mistakes. But we've seen it in every race this weekend that it's very, very difficult sometimes to get the bike slowed down, and you're going to run wide a little bit here and there.
So look at the podium. As you can see, the MotoAmerica Superbike Championship of Texas banner up there after we saw a spectacular race. And I think the thing that impressed me the most was Tony Elias knew that he got pushed very, very hard, and he was still out of breath, even though getting off that motorcycle. Roger Hayden saying that he lost a bit of tire those last 2 laps, and that was the gap that allowed Tony Elias to win. Josh Hayes kind of caught in no man's land. But also, Cameron Beaubier impressed me by coming back after what has to be a disastrous weekend for the #1 plate in the Superbike class, able to finish 4th about 20 seconds after he lost about 40.
It looked like he was going to just retire from the race for a minute, because he did pull off the track and he was looking down at things. So you're exactly right. For him to be able to go in and continue to race, not only continue to race, but to fight back all the way to 4th. And I think he finished only 4 seconds behind Josh there at the end. So he continued to fight. The kid's got a lot of fight in him. It takes more than one race weekend to win a championship. And the fact that he was just able to get that thing going. And I think moving on to Atlanta, we have a lot of different storylines as far as that goes. I think sometimes the weather in Atlanta can play a factor down there, as it did last year. If you remember, it rained really hard for a lot of the weekend. Looking at the weather forecast last night, it looked like it was going to be pretty good. They've had a big cold spell down there, and it looks like it's going to start to warm up. But hopefully we get a ton of fans in Atlanta. It used to be one of our most well-attended events.
Oh, yeah.
And it's such a great track to sightsee and to look at, and they've got a lot of vendors. And, you know, I know Suzuki came on board and sponsored that event. So all in all, I'm looking forward to getting back to Atlanta. A little bit of Josh Hayes' stomping ground. That's where him and Rod, you know, I've seen them battle there also. Raj got a little redemption to do from there last year too, Greg, because he was leading both races in the rain and ended up tipping over, and he gave away a lot of points. Raj is walking out of the first round here this weekend with 2 second places, a lot of points, and rolling on forward.
Road Atlanta, of course, a natural road course that was basically just kind of said, oh, we should just put some pavement here and there, about 50 miles north of the airport in Atlanta. And I'm really looking forward to seeing if Bobby Fong, Claudio Corti, and Josh Herron with Danny Eslick can continue that battle. That battle for 6th place overall, which was actually for 2nd and 3rd in the Superstock class between Claudio Corti, Josh Herron, and Danny Eslick, was massively impressive. And we could see the differences on how those motorcycles handle and how they accelerate.
One of the things that I think when you start looking at world level racing, I remember, you know, when I watched World Supersport, when I watched World Superbike, those guys are battling for 15th. There's races all the way through the field, and we're starting to see that here also with our series, and that's neat, because that was a fun race to watch. It would be really neat to watch one of those guys' onboard cameras the whole race, because there was some real fighting going on, and I'm sure those guys were happy with each other after the event and whatever. But you're 100% right, and I think that there's going to be some places where that group of 3 at some of the tracks that we run on our series, they're going to be closer to the Superbike guys than we think. This is a track that we can have that separation because we have the acceleration out of the slow corners onto these big, fast straightaways. Some of the tracks that we go to, as you know, we don't have some of that disparity. So those Superstock bikes, I think, are going to be able to stay a lot closer to the Superbikes, and that mix and match of brands and things like that is going to increase our exposure even more with our series.
So the next stop that we mentioned is Road Atlanta. That's coming up next weekend. And then April 29th and May 1st, we're at New Jersey Motorsports Park for the first of 2 visits to that venue. And then we're near Raleigh, North Carolina for Virginia International Raceway. MotoAmerica stops at Road America. That's June 3rd through the 5th. And then we go to Barber Motorsports Park, June 10th through the 12th. Utah Motorsports Campus as well. and Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca as support for World Superbike. New Jersey Motorsports Park will be our finale September 9th through the 11th. So you want to make sure that if you're in the area or get on an airplane and come see these racers race it up in the MotoAmerica U.S. Championship, as we saw some spectacular race action here from Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, both from the MotoGP World Championship, the Red Bull Grand Prix of Americas, and the MotoAmerica Superbike Championship of Texas. Well, for Jason Pridmore and Julian Gonzalez, I'm Greg White. Thank you so much for joining us here on beIN Sports Coverage, and we will see you next week for World Superbike, MotoAmerica, and World Rallycross.